Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer who barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground come a bubbling crude oil, that is, black gold, Texas tea. Well, the first thing you know, oh, Jed is a millionaire. The kinfolk said, Jed, move away from there. Said, California is the place you ought to be. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Beverly Hills, that is. Swimming pools, movie stars, the Beverly Hillbilly. The morning sun had not even begun to peek over the horizon of Beverly Hills when a loud commotion shattered the silence of the early hours. Granny was already on her feet, standing in the middle of the room with her arms crossed, looking at the sleeping figure in front of her. Hey, what is all the racket? A groggy voice complained from under the blankets. It is time to go to work, lazy bones, Granny shouted, her voice echoing through the quiet house. But, Granny, it is 5 o'clock in the morning, the young man protested, pulling the covers over his head to block out the early light. Better late than never, Granny snapped back, entirely unmoved by his pleas. I am a big city boy now, the voice muttered from beneath the sheets, trying to find comfort in the mattress. Nothing can get me out of this hour. You want breakfast? Granny asked, knowing exactly which button to push. In an instant, the blankets flew open and the young man sat up, completely awake. I am ready, Granny, he said with a sudden burst of energy. Granny smiled slightly, nodding her approval as she watched him jump out of bed. For a city boy, you move pretty good, she admitted, walking toward the kitchen area. But Uncle Jed is already at the table. Yes, ma'am, he replied, hurried footsteps following her. Oh, Annie Mae, you are up. Yes, ma'am, a soft voice answered from the corner of the room. But I sure am sleepy, Annie Mae confessed, rubbing her eyes as she tried to shake off the exhaustion. You young ones would not have this trouble if you went to bed at a decent hour, Granny lectured, setting down a heavy iron skillet. Well, I went to bed at 9 o'clock, Annie Mae murmured, defending herself. There you are, Granny said as Jed walked into the room, looking calm and collected as always. Now take your rooster and put him out, she ordered. Have some breakfast. And then we will go down and get the Clampett Enterprises ready for business. The young man looked out the window, noticing the darkness that still covered the streets. Granny, the bank building won't even be open, he pointed out. Folks in Beverly Hills don't get up this early. But they don't, huh? Granny scoffed, stopping what she was doing. You know who that is at the door? Who? The young man asked, looking toward the entrance. Mr. Drysdale, Granny announced proudly. He is riding into town with us. At 5 o'clock in the morning? The young man gasped, unable to believe his ears. He didn't stay up half the night like you did, Granny said, shaking her head. He knows this is the best part of the day. It is the early bird that catches the worm. So he is up, ready to go, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. At that exact moment, the front door opened, and Mr. Drysdale stumbled into the room, looking completely disoriented and exhausted. Where am I? What happened? He mumbled, blinking heavily as he tried to figure out his surroundings. Granny, you called me. What is the trouble? No trouble, Granny said cheerfully, completely ignoring his dazed state. We need you to open up the bank building so we can go to work. It is 5 o'clock. The stars are out. The moon is shining. It does make you feel good, don't it? It always says up at 5, you are sure to thrive. Wait till 6, you are in a fix. What kind of a day is it going to be? Mr. Drysdale looked out the window with absolute dread. Rotten, he whispered to himself. Well, I best go check the weather signs, Granny declared, bustling out of the room to read the morning sky. Jed looked at the banker with a great deal of respect, nodding his head in appreciation. Well, doggy, Mr. Drysdale, Jed said, his voice warm and welcoming. Why, you are the first city fella I ever seen with gumption enough to get going before sunup. Mr. Drysdale tried to straighten his posture, attempting to look professional despite his obvious fatigue. Well, I always say up at 5, you are sure to thrive. Wait till 6, you are in a fix. That is what I always say, he repeated, trying to sound enthusiastic. We are kindred spirits, Mr. Clampett. Jed smiled warmly, looking out at the sky. You are wrong, Mr. Drysdale. It is going to be a fine day. Good, the banker replied, nodding weakly. Have you had your breakfast? Granny asked as she walked back into the room. Granny, you know he has had breakfast, Jed whispered to her. Well, this man keeps country hours, Granny insisted. How about some coffee? Mr. Drysdale smiled, the thought of caffeine giving him a small spark of hope. Fine, fine. I would love it. Jed looked down at the banker and noticed something unusual. You still got on your night clothes, Jed pointed out with a chuckle. Mr. Drysdale looked down at his own attire in sudden realization.
Huh?
Oh, he stammered, trying to find a quick explanation. You see, I didn't want to turn on the lights and wake my wife. Jed nodded understandingly, a look of sympathy on his face. I reckon you beat her up regularly, Jed said, meaning that the banker always managed to wake up before her. Mr. Drysdale blinked in surprise, then a small, mischievous smile crossed his face. No, but it is a great idea, he joked, before realizing how it sounded. Oh, you mean get up ahead of her. Let us go have that coffee. You go right ahead, Jed said, gesturing toward the kitchen. We will be right with you. Oh, thank you, Mr. Drysdale said, shuffling forward in his slippers. A few hours later, inside the grand walls of the bank, Jean was sitting at her desk, working diligently. The door opened, and she looked up to see Mr. Drysdale walking in, looking incredibly exhausted.
Jean.
Jean, he called out. What? It is only 8:30, she said, looking at the clock on the wall. What are you doing here at this hour? This hour? Mr. Drysdale groaned, sinking into his chair. I have been here since 5:30. How come? Jean asked, her eyes wide with surprise. I had to open up so the Clampetts could go to work, he explained, rubbing his temples. At 5:30? Yeah, from now on, they want to open up at 5, he said with a sigh. Jean looked down at him and noticed something bizarre. Gee, you are wearing pajamas, she pointed out. Oh, I was so sleepy. I forgot to change, Mr. Drysdale admitted, looking down at his nightclothes. Oh, I've got a suit in here, he remembered, pointing toward his private closet. Please put it on immediately, Jean urged him, her voice filled with panic. If someone came in here, do you realize what they would think? What would they think? Mr. Drysdale asked, genuinely confused. Well, they would think that perhaps you hired me for reasons other than my secretarial authority, she explained, crossing her arms. As a matter of fact, I did, Mr. Drysdale replied dryly. Yes, you worked cheap. Jean frowned, feeling a bit offended. You were living there for a minute, weren't you? Just for that, I helped the Clampetts stay in the 5th floor for a year. We get you up at 5 every morning. Mr. Drysdale shook his head frantically. I am getting rid of them today. I am bringing in a hired gun. Gee, Jean whispered. No, Mr. Drysdale clarified quickly. He is just a troubleshooter, but he is the best. Cunning, cruel, ruthless, unprincipled, conniving. Oh, a beautiful man. Oh, by the way, his name is Homer Bedloe. Right on cue, the door to the office opened, and a sharp, severe-looking man stepped inside. Good morning, the man said, his voice cold and calculated. Good morning, Mr. Bedloe, Jean said, adjusting her glasses. How did you know my name? Homer Bedloe asked, narrowing his eyes suspiciously. Well, you fit Mr. Drysdale's description perfectly, she answered simply. Sit down, Mr. Drysdale offered, gesturing to a chair. You and Mr. Drysdale friends? Jean asked, curious about the newcomer. I don't have any friends, Homer Bedloe replied without a moment of hesitation. I hope Mr. Drysdale will find my work pleasing. I would like to give up my job on the railroad and stay on